Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Traxion Control, Traxion's monthly-ish news and opinion-ish magazine show that's on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As ever, I'm Tom and I'm joined by Tom.
Hello.
And John.
Hello-ish.
Oh, yes, hope you're both doing very well, and we're going to run through, as ever, 2 or 3 hot topics. So this is not for the latest news. Visit the TraxionGG website for that. And if you want John playing some games live and in YouTube form, we've got the video channel there. Got the wrong way around, but we'll keep rolling, that you can enjoy. But this is a discussion, and we want your feedback in the YouTube comments or on the Spotify comment section or on the website comments or on social media.
And I believe we've just had some hot news dropping on the website about Boxenstopp.
Okay, that was our April Fool's gag, which some people took very, very literally. So that
Some people were furious about the long lead time for that game.
I got done by an April Fool's. SimLab got me. I was literally messaging Tom. Like, there's news. SimLab they're stopping developing their direct drive base, and then I realised it was the 1st of April. So well done, SimLab.
Yeah, if you're not aware, we wrote an article on the Traxion website for a fake game, sim racing game called Boxenstopp. Coming out in 2037 or something.
Yeah, well, it's going to have the alpha, the beta, the
closed beta,
early access, the pre-release, the closed beta,
all
the
with
open
DLC.
beta, all with paid DLC and a subscription,
and a QR code for merchandise. But
yeah,
we'll link it in the description and the show notes.
It was sassy, Tom.
It was a pastiche on the whole industry, not anyone in particular.
A pastiche, you mean? Sorry.
Oh, yes, good point. Oh, that was a very deep reference. Anyway,
sorry.
We need to move on to something much, much more serious because it's a sim racing and we take everything very, very seriously.
GT3 tire models, let's go.
Yeah, actually, Renault vans. So this is to symbolise Gran Turismo 7's recent updates. We're in April now, but it's March update, which was just a week or two ago. I did the Renault Kangoo from 2001. I don't think anybody asked or requested for this vehicle. And the month before that, I did the Mercedes Unimog, which has 30 horsepower-ish.
Mine doesn't anymore.
Well, you've tuned yours.
Yes.
So the point here is, this is arguably, depending on which numbers you believe, the most played, let's say, serious driving game. Maybe not an out-and-out simulator, but it has some authentic elements. And it's not been adding modern racing cars recently. So do we think it needs to, or are Renault vans baguette transporters, what people want?
Gran Turismo, what does it say it is?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit confused trying to appeal to everybody.
Well, I'm reading it here. It says the real driving simulator.
It does actually say that under the game logo.
So I think that you've got, it perhaps answers your own question there, that it said driving simulator, and it makes sense, I guess, to showcase that driving on a racetrack. And they're showing road cars, vans, people carriers, because those are things that you drive. I would say that this is more in keeping with Gran Turismo's message, their raison d'etre. What I would argue is what they are... That's very clever, I know.
Yeah.
What I would argue is that what they're missing are the roads to drive them on, as opposed to either the tracks or the kind of road tracks. Because it's a driving simulator. So why the hell not have a Kangoo 7-seater van? And one of the most, I guess, clipped and viral sectors of video, if you like, genre of video within the Gran Turismo culture is putting stupid engines and modifications into liveries into cars, right? Yeah. So this looks like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah.
For me, there's almost a strange split personality culture thing going on with Gran Turismo, the franchise, and Gran Turismo 7, the reality and the product, especially since Gran Turismo Sport, which I think changed the way that Gran Turismo games are kind of viewed. This is a numbered entry, but it still continues on from Gran Turismo Sport, and I think there's a big aspect or big focus on like multiplayer racing, and that's what Gran Turismo is trying to like modernize itself with. So it's a big, the original Gran Turismo games weren't focused on multiplayer racing. They were focused on buying, I was about to say something that I'll not say, certain types of cars like this with its...
I want to know that.
I want to know what you're going to say.
Joie de vivre shitboxes. And
I mean...
And I think...
Have you ever driven one?
What, Renault Kangoo?
Yeah.
No, I've driven a Peugeot Partner,
so
not a Renault Kangoo. But the original Gran Turismo games were all about car culture and, as you say, driving road cars, and there was something about tuning cars and bringing them up to speed and also just learning about cars. Modern Gran Turismo feels like it's about multiplayer racing, and that's where the game seems to be focused in terms of the features. So by doing this, you're appealing to the original Gran Turismo franchise, but are you appealing to the modern Gran Turismo 7 player? I don't know.
I think it's I agree with you both, which is really boring for a podcast, isn't it? But basically, I think you need these curios that is what Gran Turismo represents. But then you have people like Rory Alexander, Super GT, and they're doing only sport mode content. They're very popular, and that's all about the mostly modern GT3 and GT4 cars, which are absent from the game at the minute.
If we remove
the new model
Wreckfest from our repertoire of conversation items, could you say that this is a welcome splash of personality in an otherwise increasingly soulless landscape?
I think it is.
Maybe that's a bit bleak.
No, because everything is quite po-faced and serious, and we actually really like that. But you do need some light relief, and why not have that light relief in a way that looks really amazing and has still some thought behind how the cars behave. They're not all perfectly.
I'm not sure I'd say a Renault Kangoo looks really amazing.
But I think
but I meant in terms of the fidelity of like the recreation and the accuracy.
Yes.
And then this allows you to put liveries on and wheels. I mean, like I'm sure there's been some Kangoo leagues now where big spoilers in the back and stuff.
The Unimog, for example, was. I mean, I tried it on the stream and I fully tuned it, and it was so slow that even fully tuned it wasn't that fun to drive.
No.
But obviously, there's going to be potentially engine swaps and stuff in future. In fact, there might be an engine swap already.
No, there isn't.
But that kind of thing would make it more interesting. But I just like, why can't you have both in an update? If you're going to release cars, if you're going to release a ridiculous Unimog, why not release like a modern racing car with it rather than a mid 2000s BMW?
Well, the Ferrari in GT3 or Group 3 is Gran Turismo terms. The Ferrari 456 is the car that they have. That's 2 whole generations behind.
Yeah.
And when they do their World Series events, which are amazing, so then, the official BMW team is the old M6. It looks a bit strange. Maybe they'll save that for Gran Turismo 8. But going back to what you were saying, in terms of character in a maybe soulless world, I think this is where some of it stems from. So this is an image of the Kangoo Jamboree.
I love that.
Sounds like a Mario.
It's a yearly Japanese event in the real world for real world owners of all generations of Kangoo. It turns out it's got a massive following in Japan, and owners love to customize it and modify the insides and outsides, and they love them. And I think Gran Turismo also represents car culture more than anything these days.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I do think, though, what you're missing in Gran Turismo is the environment to properly appreciate them.
Yeah.
So this Kangoo
maybe some open world
around Spa. Might be a bit, maybe they could have the roads around the Nordschleife that you could drive around on your way to...
Have we heard of a game that's doing that?
And it's great, but you'd probably race that around, I don't know, Red Bull Ring and be like, this is kind of cool, but I'd rather race literally anything else.
Older Gran Turismo games had some like slower street circuits, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like Città d'Aria or something like this?
Paris or Città d'Aria, yeah.
Right, so maybe some of those returning would also be fitting because it was more one-on-ones, slower paced.
Yeah, and then actually the road cars can be more enjoyable on like tight circuits rather than purpose-built racetracks, and there's a big difference there.
Well, not to sway all the way over to AC Evo, but I think this image here perfectly encapsulates what they're trying to achieve, and I can imagine driver meet servers where the idea is that you can race-ish, but that's not really what it's about. It's about having a driver meet. But I do think Gran Turismo would be fantastic if there was a way.
Gran Turismo has that in some sort of way.
I was just going to say,
it's not really because
nobody uses it,
and also it doesn't feel like proper car meet culture because it's racetracks.
No, right. You have to go in world circuits on an individual track. It's only certain ones, I think. Yeah. There's like, has it even been removed? I don't know. It definitely was there. And basically, you're in like a car park, aren't you? And you can see the other players like modified tuned cars, but you can't drive.
Yeah.
And I think you can just press a button to say like an emoji hello, and then nothing comes of that. There were meeting rooms. Anyway. We should move on to the next one.
Yes.
So that was, if Gran Turismo is light relief, then BeamNG is torture and pain because it's all about the crashing and the soft body physics and the most realistic simulator of all time. Anyway, as we are speaking, just a few days ago, it launched several new rally stages and a co-driver and some rally furniture. And now it seems to be one of their main focuses is hey, let's turn this into a rally sim like Richard Burns Beta, but that's cool and all, but should it be doing that?
My argument would be, why not? Have they spotted a gap?
Yeah. I think they have.
I mean, that's another conversation, right? Because is there a gap? I think perhaps some articles you've written recently about the WRC game, perhaps there is a gap, and perhaps these guys launching, we've had some SimCady rally titles that have reaped the wrath of the TraxionGG editorial team, maybe this is really, really good timing.
Because as well, there's still a hardcore fraternity that enjoy Richard Burns Rally, which is 20 years old.
Yeah,
maybe
but that
more.
is a hardcore and tiny fraternity.
Yes, exactly. And it's abandonware and it's all based probably in community. So here maybe it is a platform that can do both mods and made. And
there's a lot more people playing Richard Burns Rally than I think people realise. You know,
but it's not on Steam, is it?
It's not on Steam. That's the thing, you can't see it. But in terms of active rallies, there are, I would say, tens and tens and tens and tens of events that have at least 30, 40 participants every day. So there are probably way more people playing that than AC Evo. And I think
more than Rensport?
I think so.
What about Boxenstopp?
Hey!
But I would say...
Not related to Rensport, just be clear.
They're actually... So obviously a big thing about Richard Burns Rally, because that's kind of the most, you would say, like realistic type of rally experience, even though that's a whole other discussion point. There are actually communities on Richard Burns Rally that have now started to look at Beam. And because of this update, because of the new actual co-driver, which I think is the biggest thing that Beam was missing in terms of a rallying experience, pace notes and a co-driver, and having like more dedicated rally stages, we're actually already beginning to see early signs of ex-Richard Burns Rally-focused communities focusing fully on BeamNG. So I think you might be right in that they've spotted a bit of a gap in the market, but are they not also then leaving the bit of the market that they've already sort of tried to make their own anyway?
I'm not saying it couldn't be popular with rally, but also this update has extra drift areas. There's a lot of drift going on. There's drag racing. Then you've got your overlanding, like the rock crawling off-roader. Then there's the missions and the police chases, and there's open world bits, and there's town bits, and there's cityscapes and bus routes. And so my thinking was, could be fantastic, but are they trying to handle too many things at once? And if they focus on one area at a time, could it be something really amazing?
Or are they going for the other simulator? And what I mean by that is you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 simulators
GT3
all
cars
doing circuit racing.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And then you really have very few people doing all of the other stuff around it, all the car culture bits, so drifting and rally and drag racing. The market isn't big enough for a drag racing game. I think since since playing Flash games in Spanish lessons when I was a kid, I don't think I played a drag racing game for 20 years, right? And the same with drift. There's a couple like CarX, for example, is a drifting game, and their numbers are pretty
sky high.
Yep. So maybe I'm kind of arguing against myself here, but I can see BeamNG's positioning as the other simulator, basically everything other than circuit racing, because why would they compete with everybody else doing circuit racing?
Funny enough, you can also do a bit of circuit racing in Beam, but then that's just like an extra part.
Yeah,
but
priority there.
What I think is good about rallying in Beam as a concept is that all of the things that make Beam good in all of the other areas of the game, like the crash physics, the damage, the terrain, and the objects around, that you can crash into rocks and fences and all these things, all of that kind of makes the rally experience more realistic and more enjoyable, because yes, you can go flat out through a forest, but if you get it wrong, you're going to be enjoying the crazy Beam crash physics, you're going to be enjoying the damage model, which is phenomenal, and you're going to be enjoying all the different terrains that they have, different terrain types on BeamNG.drive. So I think rallying kind of encapsulates the best of what's already available on Beam. I just think that, being able to drive on a rally sim where you actually have to think about, that big rock on the side of the road, that's not just going to slightly bump my car, that's going to rip off my wheel. I'm going to have to take a line to avoid that, or I'm going to have to use the banking to my advantage, and really thinking about that is a good thing. And I think that is somewhere where it differentiates from your traditional rally games.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking it feels like sometimes I'm sure it's not, but it feels like a scattergun approach of, let's do everything. And that's why I'm going to predict on this show right now that we will never ever see version 1.
Yeah,
it's going to be
wouldn't go
perpetually in early access, and that's going to be the end of it.
I just want to say as well on this, the one thing that I think could be could still be improved to make it more of like a real contender as a top rally sim would probably be the actual driving physics. Because for me, even though the damage physics, the terrain, and all these things are realistically simulated, I still think the driving doesn't feel as natural as some of the other games that are a bit more focused. So I think that's definitely an area that they could improve on. But then, as you say, what direction?
If they focus too much on that, then the drag racing or the drifting,
the career mode will never happen.
The career mode forbid the drag racing stuff to suffer.
I keep mentioning it. It's such a small part of Beam.
Can I just say though, I love BeamNG. I love what they do, and I love how much fun they have with the game development. Even if it is scattergun, I play it in a scattergun way, and I kind of love that.
Yeah.
So I have to give them a lot of credit as well. I hope you're all enjoying this video. Just a quick message though for those of you using Fanatec equipment. Maybe you're looking to upgrade, maybe you're looking for new peripherals. If you use the affiliate link down in the description below, it will take you to the Fanatec website. It won't make a difference to your experience, but what it will do is help support this TraxionGG YouTube channel and of course our website. And that will help us make more content like this in the future. Back to the video.
What's this?
Yeah, so this is actually, I think, the biggest announcement, and maybe the biggest racing game this year. We'll see. I know a lot of people will debate that. And I know there are some people who will not want us to talk about this because they're serious sim only. But just quickly, this is EA Sports F1 25. It's the yearly official Formula 1 game. It's releasing some point soon.
Soon?
When is it releasing?
2025, I think.
2025.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's end of May. And this is really important for the industry because Formula 1 is huge, and if they do it well and capitalize on the Netflix audience and the Instagram audience and the races in America, this is an accessible title with some authentic elements that gets people into sim racing.
Yes, I think it's kind of in the same way that Drive to Survive brings people into watching real-world Formula 1,
Yeah.
the F1 25 game seems to be a way of bringing people into the sim racing world.
Not the only,
That's
but
how I came in.
yeah, right, yeah. And so many others did as
The
well.
gateway drug.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why it's important. And even if you're not interested in this particular game to purchase it yourself, it's important for your hobby and your passion, which might be other games, because ultimately we all want more people to be playing to keep the businesses sustainable.
Yeah. Please call me out, by the way, if I have done this before on every other F1 game, but I genuinely right now believe this is the most important F1 release in...
Whoa!
Since 24.
I would... maybe since 22 or 21, because this year's Formula 1 championship is probably the most open, exciting, competitive. So many changes with all the new rookies coming in. We've got Hamilton at Ferrari. And I feel a buzz about Formula 1 right now.
Oh, definitely.
Everyone I speak to, from racing, some racing people, but mainly actually to people I know outside of racing, are so invested in Formula 1 right now, and this season specifically. I think this is like a real momentum point. I know like we've kind of been saying that on a smaller scale for years, but I really think 2025 could be the biggest Formula 1 year in a long time. Therefore, we're going to have lots of new fans potentially looking at the Formula 1 game. We've got a much bigger female audience than ever before. I think we could see more females looking at the F1 game as well. I just think that this game is really important.
It's interesting what you say there, because I think the choice of drivers on the cover image is testament to that, right? Because usually it's, here are the three drivers who are most likely to win a race, and it'll be Verstappen, Leclerc, and Verstappen with three different baseball caps on. Yeah. Whereas this time we've got Piastri, who's exciting because he's the quote-unquote, I know they don't have a number 2 driver, but he is the junior driver in a team that's tipped to win the championship, but they didn't go with Lando Norris. You've got Sainz, who's quote-unquote fallen from Ferrari to Williams, but that car's looking pretty handy. And then you've got Behrman, who in China was absolutely incredible with his chows as he went past the drivers. So
which he then since apologised for, which I didn't think he needed.
No, I know. Well, I think
it was not rude.
I think he forgot maybe that it was all being broadcast, and he just didn't want the other. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's a whole other discussion. But yes, I do think it's interesting because usually this game would just have the top 3 contenders, and they've gone for young, interesting, exciting. So, is that a reflection of what's on the inside? Not necessarily. Could just be that they're bored of using the same 3 drivers and let's be a bit edgy.
Do you think it's like they've gone for kind of 3 storylines rather than the 3 biggest, most recognisable faces?
Ooh. Well, talking of storylines, Breaking Point is back.
Yes.
Friend of the show, Adam Sanderson, as Devon Butler, returns as our arch rival nemesis. You saw a glimpse of his livery, the kind of purpley yellow livery. So I don't know. The Breaking Point has been quite popular in the past.
Yes. Yeah, let's quickly run through the features for those not aware. Obviously, it is a racing game where you drive cars on tracks, and it is all the tracks from
starting
cars.
from
I was going from timeline before Christ.
4 circles made of rubber, right?
No, but it's got all the cars and tracks and venues and sponsors from the real world F1 season, and then maybe at a later date the F2 season as well, and not F3, which always annoys me. And then you have various different modes. You can race online. There's a F1 World, we presume, although that hasn't been mentioned at any point, but that's a weird mode we won't go into. Yeah. There's My Team is coming back with all new changes, which is where you create your own team and manage them as well as driving. We don't know what those changes are just yet.
Which, just to interject, is interesting because there is a gap for F1 management games right now. I wonder if those two things are aligned.
Yes, because as we've discussed in the last episode, F1 Manager game series seems to be kaput.
Yes.
Kaput's exactly the same word that I was thinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, don't know, just kaput just felt
Same
right.
wavelength, that's why we work together.
Yeah.
But I've completely lost my wavelength now.
My team, new.
No, my team. Let's just quickly mention that. Yeah, that's a fantastic point because this is a real opportunity. Going back to what John was saying as well, this is a time to make a good game, and if the management mode is more detailed, that it could also grow their audience as well. And then there's also a breaking point, and for those who don't know that is a narrative-led story mode. You play through over, I don't know, between 10 and 15 hours. It's a one and done.
You start in F2?
Well, yeah, in some previous ones, although we're not sure on this one. If it's following on from 2, those characters are both in Formula 1, so we'll have to unless they're bringing some new blood.
I had a soft spot for driving F2 cars in this game. It felt a little
last
more
year's.
raw. Yeah, the feel of it through the wheel, I quite liked. And it was quite popular, and a lot of streamers would stream F2 championships.
Well, there's no classic cars for them to play. Anyway, so
What
that's
about road cars? We getting road cars again? What happened to road cars?
thankfully removed.
I want the Renault Kangoo in F125. I'm missing a
It
trick
won't be
here.
surprised me for next year's game. Though mercifully, they are jettisoned. And then there's also some other things. So in the trailer, there was reverse tracks, and in the press release, not in the trailer, there was a mention of laser scanning venues, which I think is a first time, or they might have used some in the past, but they really needed to do that.
We've been calling out for that for years.
Yes. The hardcore, anyway, have been wanting. I pointed at myself,
We as Traxion
which is weird.
have been calling out for that.
Yes, the controller players on their couch could not give two hoots whether or not that bump is the same size in the game as it is in real
I do.
life. But you do, yes, exactly, yeah.
So actually, that's. I think that there on paper, you have to say they were trying to appeal to the mass audience with the story, the sort of seasoned F1 game fan with updating my team properly for the first time since 2020, and at the same time, those who want a bit more authenticity, maybe esports drivers where the tracks should be more accurate. So, on the face of it, seems quite good.
It does.
But we are not trying it yet, and we've not seen gameplay, and there's a lot to know about all these different modes and stuff.
Yeah, and it's very easy to get ahead of yourselves in excitement hearing features, but we've seen that all too many times from games where it's like, here's an exciting new feature, and what is it in reality? Well, you don't really care about it.
So here's a discussion point then. When the game releases, what are the top 3 things that it needs to get right in order to be a success? I'm going to offer one since there's 3 of us.
Yeah, okay. I've got one.
AI.
Yes.
The AI needs to be balanced.
Better than last
Can't be
time.
too aggressive, which is frustrating when you get crashed out by the AI. There's nothing more frustrating than getting crashed out by the AI because it's not your fault, and it's not like it's against another human being where there's some emotion involved. It's just the game has just put me into a barrier, and I've spent 25 minutes getting to this point. This sucks. Yeah. So my point would be they have to get the AI right.
Okay, mine is that last year's game was rightly lambasted for very strange handling. So at the start, you could ride over any curb you wanted, nothing happened, which was actually to a benefit of a lot of gamepad introductory players, but the content creators and esports drivers, or those who want something a bit more serious, were really put off, especially. And then they updated it and went the other way and annoyed the people that stuck in the middle. But even then, I felt like it was still slightly weird how the car felt from the rear. So they've not mentioned a thing about improved vehicle handling. So let's find out.
And I think, actually, if I was coming up with one, I probably would have said something similar. And just to add
well,
to
unfortunately, we've taken the two good ones. So you have to give a third.
I will add to Tom's as well. We were just literally talking about this at lunchtime today. The AI, not only the way they behave, but also the speed and the kind of inconsistency there with the speed between different circuits with the difficulty
levels.
So I found in old F1 games, I sometimes wouldn't get through a season of career mode because of how inconsistent the speed of the AI cars were. I don't think that's been improved based on everything we've been hearing. So
fingers crossed.
That's one thing that would also be improved. For me, I mean, honestly, I like the fact that they're updating the My Team mode just because we knew there was going to be, or we very much heavily expected there to be Breaking Point 3 based on the way the games are.
Yeah. 2-year cadence.
So for me, like, in terms of anything new, what different thing could they possibly do?
Yeah.
Yes, I want them to improve the handling, but an upgraded, very popular career mode style of My Team, changing that and making it, obviously we don't know if it's going to be better yet, it could be worse, but having some changes to that is important because if not, it's just going to get stale.
Well, here's the thing. What's been happening recently is because it's a yearly release, it has to be a yearly thing, what they tend to do, and I don't know the size of the team and how it works, but I suspect that EA Sports FC is a much larger team, is that 1 or 2 modes get a makeover while everything else basically remains the same.
Yeah.
And then we're on this weird thing so that every year there's something new, but then there's a load of stuff that is out of date and stale. So we presume F1 World remains the same, but we don't know. And we presume that the driver career, which was new last year, remains the same, which I quite enjoyed, but I know it wasn't perfect. And I suspect we're in that pattern now, locked in forever.
I just really hope they give us some more choices for couches.
Yes. Also removed, though, thankfully, last year.
More lamps.
And they've removed it just when we've launched this brilliant Traxion coffee.
We've got a new Traxion Team.
That could have been in the game.
To make it so it's now available
I know.
to purchase. They're about
affiliate code in the
£1,500
description.
each.
This is recorded on April 1st, so let's just put it down to that.
No, but this is a really good point because our skepticism you mentioned about some of the new features, are they any good? We'll have to try them. Is valid because of the road car, supercars, the sofas, the F1 World. You know, rightly, the marketing and PR and social team have to hype these new things up.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, you're like, well, I don't want to play that again. And then it's in the next game and it's not in the next game.
Do you know what I think F125 has also got going for it, other than the big kind of hyper in Formula One and the
Lewis Hamilton's on the cover
season? I mean, it's got a great looking cover. I also think that it's coming after a game that was relatively so disappointing.
Yeah, and they've got an uphill battle to change that perception.
Definitely. And for me, I don't think it's a coincidence that for me, the best recent F1 games have been 21 and 23, not 22 or 24. And I wonder why that might be, whether it was the handling change in 22, but 24's handling wasn't up to scratch. I like Breaking Point as a mode. I think it's fun and it's a bit different.
So the odd numbers are better?
For me, the odd numbers are better.
My favourite is 21, is F1 19.
Yeah, well, there you go. 2020 was very good to be fair.
I liked 2020 because it introduced my team.
Yes.
And it was the last one with classic cars.
There you go. But what I'm trying to say is that we're coming off of a underwhelming, disappointing F1 24, relatively speaking. So the F1 crowd are really, really keen and are hungry for a good new F1 title.
But also, there are more, if you look at the online feedback, let's say, there are more skeptics than ever.
Yeah. But
it's sort of built up over time.
Yeah. But anyway, there's going to be lots of eyes on this game.
Speaking of skeptics, or people who want to enjoy it, we asked you, the Traxion community, on our YouTube community page.
of skeptics.
Yeah, I've just offended our entire audience. Apologies. And we also asked it on some of our social media channels. So do follow there. So you can get involved in future episodes. You can also email podcast@TraxionGG if you've got any questions for us three to answer some potential future episodes, and join our Discord, which is traxion.gg/Discord, or just Google Traxion Discord, because we also asked this question in there and we have a couple of responses to go through.
More than a couple.
Yes, absolutely. Well, especially on the YouTube community.
We have a flock of responses.
We put this question out on all of our socials, YouTube community and our Discord, and we got 2 questions.
Two questions there. So
and a message from Daniel Blanco saying he loves the show.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Daniel.
Thank you, yes.
Daniel Blanco?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Daniel.
Daniel loves the show.
No way.
Wonderful, we've got a fan. So we asked...
a fam or a fan?
A fan.
Oh, okay. I thought you were listening, we're going to start the family.
No. So we asked what you made of it so far, based on what the public has seen is just... one trailer, and please stay tuned because we'll have hopefully some previews and reviews as the game comes out. So we'll start with Callum on our Discord, and this is a key feature we've not mentioned. This is the first F1 game in a very, very long time, probably F1 15, that isn't on 2015, PS4 or Xbox One. And Callum is particularly aggrieved by that, and he says they're traitors to last-gen people, end of an era for me. I feel betrayed as a PS4 person who bought the F1 games. I feel like they could have done a legacy edition. They let us PS4 and Xbox One people down. So I'm conflicted about this. I actually do really agree with Callum's point of view because it costs money to buy a PS5, and not everybody has that, and you want a Formula One game. On the flip side, the current generation's been out for a long time now. Eventually has to be a cut-off point.
It has to happen at some point, right?
Yes.
So they have
and it's actually happened later than I expected.
I mean, it has to happen at some point, and every time they decide not to remove PS4, then they're taking away time, resources that they could put into the new game that instead they have to put into making it run on both, whereas now they can just make it run on one platform. So I kind of get the frustration, but it's kind of it's inevitable. And I wonder if Callum would have said this if this year it was available on PS4 and Xbox One as a legacy edition, but next year it wasn't. Like, would the one extra year be enough? But then that's so subjective. You're all. I'm hesitant to say that you're always going to upset someone because that's just an excuse. Yeah. But it's a tough one.
It's if you are the person that's being affected by it, you're going to be annoyed about that. In the same way that if I own a VR headset, I do own a VR headset, but if I race primarily in VR and a game comes out that doesn't support VR, I'm going to be upset by that. If I'm someone who plays only single player career modes, and there isn't a career mode, I'm going to be upset by that. You can't really avoid, unfortunately, upsetting people that want something that you can't provide, and you can't provide everything.
Well,
the question for me though on this, just quickly, is did they need to not release it on PS4?
Yes.
Or is this a decision that was made with lots of the bigger picture in mind? Is it for the greater good, or is it just we'll not bother about that anymore? And I don't know the answer.
We have a comment later who's actually really happy that it's not on the PS4 and Xbox One, first of all. Second thing, though, is it's running the same game engine as before, so it feels like it technically could be possible, although resource is an issue. And just to clarify the point here that Callum's made about legacy editions, this was a thing that EA used to do with when it was formerly FIFA, and it would they'd carry on supporting the old platforms. It would come out at a reduced price. It would be a roster update, but no new features. So that could be another way of doing it to sort of ease people across. Anyway, then we've got Dones. Apologies if I'm going to mispronounce all these names.
This was on German.
This one, that sounds like a northern Scottish town.
Apologies. This was on X, but this is a really good point. So this is generally talking about here about general decline, but also game-breaking issues that come out. So they can have all the amazing features in the world. It can actually be a really good game, it reviews really well, but there has been a trend the last couple of years of having regular, very strange, simple bugs to elements that you think are fundamental. So there needs to be, hopefully, more work trying to squash out those bugs, and my slight concern is they're adding a load in this year. New My Team, Breaking Point, new track scans.
Yeah.
And it has to release at this date because it's a yearly game.
But if they didn't add that and they said, look, we've not got any bugs, then no one's going to be.
Yeah, that's not a bullet point, is it?
Yeah, exactly. John's right there, because the alternative is that you say F125, F124, but it works. Yeah. Please pay for it again.
Yes.
Because it's a yearly release as well, you have to add new features, and there might be bugs. But obviously we want them to be less bugs, of course.
Yeah. Good point. So now we're on to Facebook. James Stevenson here. I'll just pick out a couple of points from what he said, and thank you very much for the comment.
That's a good first point there.
Yeah, great point is that we're asking for judgment, and there's been no gameplay. Apologies.
No one's played it. No one's even seen anybody playing it.
No.
And here we are, half an hour of podcast.
Are you going to buy it?
No, 6 out of 10.
That's how it feels sometimes.
But also there's a serious point of, it's quite close to release, and there's no real gameplay, and there's no... They've just said...
Should there
be? There's going to be... No, but they've just said there's going to be a new My Team. We don't know. What we can say, though, is they will announce that soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to it. They're going to call it Deep Dives, and then people will see more.
Had they not said that, had they not made that announcement...
Well, then they said that on the website, and people won't have seen that in the video. I think they've just watched
But
the
I guess
trailer.
my point is, had they not announced the game last week or whatever it was, and they just do it when they're going to show gameplay in a couple of weeks or next month, whatever it is, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. Yeah. So they're drip. It's fairly. It's fairly common. It's common, right? They're going to drip feed us information. The game is definitely coming out. It's going to be this date, and here's a couple of teasers for features and pre-order. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't have done that.
Fair enough.
Just quickly as well, you did mention there the website versus the trailer. So the trailer didn't show much, but obviously then, if you go onto the Formula 1 website, the press release, you get more information. Or if you're watching this or listening to this, the Traxion.GG website, you will find out more information, the stuff that wasn't in the trailer, because there was a lot more information actually announced that people might not know about from just watching the trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe they could have just hinted at a few more things in that trailer, because they went all in on reverse tracks. Yeah. Now, I felt like, and I wrote in the latest Traxion email newsletter, which you can sign up for weekly rants plus the latest news, Traxion.GG. Or SAS/newsletter. Yeah. I put in there a column, I suppose, that's saying that they focus a lot on reverse tracks on this trailer, but what about the improved laser scan ones? I think that's actually could maybe win some fans. But James makes the point that they're kind of a requirement at this point, so there's no point bragging about it. It was needed a long time ago, which I also agree with. So.
Maybe they laser scan them in reverse by accident, and that's why they're
that's what it is. I wouldn't put it... no, I'm not going to say that.
Can I just say as well, I like the way in the trailer that they almost made like a story feel out of the reverse layouts. It was almost like we're racing out of the pit lane the wrong way, and there was commentary going mad, and
as if it wasn't planned. Yeah. Like, oh my god!
It's like Breaking Point 3 has gone real.
The medical car's going the right way around. It's going to be a disaster.
So Guy Bailey makes a good point here of he's intrigued about the My Team changes, but scared, let's say, that they might take away the ability to create your own driver and then they're going to change it up. So we don't know much, but they have said that you will control both your drivers and then select before each race which driver you're going to select. What I would say to that is it does sound like that maybe you won't be able to race as your own driver, but that is what last year's updated driver career is for. So I think it's going to be a much clearer separation between my team and driver career. So it might seem sad initially, but I think you're just going to have to see what they're going to reveal it, and we'll have to see how that's going. He also makes another point that he didn't want to play with some F3 rando. So in the pre-order, in the Iconic Edition with Lewis Hamilton, you get some F3 drivers, which is a first.
Yes.
I think that's a really weird pre-order because I don't think most people will know who they are. It used to be you got Ayrton Senna or David Coulthard or something.
Also, why would you not just make that default?
I think because
So they come as you play more and more seasons, you get real drivers coming in.
I bemoan the fact that you don't have the F3 car in there, but I think really would be at least more important to have the drivers in there for their career, right? You've got a 10-season career, you want to develop them
FIFA regens, like, the players that come through after 5 years, you start seeing their names pop up. That makes
so it seems they're in there, but it's going to be a few of them, and they're going to be only for the Iconic Edition.
The other thing is, right, when we think about the F1 game, is they have to make 2 cars.
Yeah.
Now, I know that the lengths are slightly different, which is why they had the multiplayer one, because the lengths are all exactly the same. Right. Because all of the every F1 car, well, each team has a slightly different length. And so there is some debate, if you go really deep into the internet, about the handling on, say, the McLaren would be different on the Haas because of the length of the car, and that affects this, that, and the other, right? But by and large, they have to create 2 cars. And I think sometimes we forget that they're only creating 2 cars and 20 odd tracks. Whereas how many games? Imagine if Gran Turismo 8 launched with 2 cars, you'd be like, what is going on? This is like what they've been doing all this time, right? So my question is, why can't we have an F1 game that has F1, F2, F3, and F1 Academy?
F1 Academy is such a win. I'm not saying it's easy, but to have women drivers with what John was saying earlier, a larger women audience, plus you want to build up that sport. Yeah, they're on the F1 undercard. Like, get those drivers in at least.
You're asking, right, I'm not a game developer, right? So this is my totally ill-conceived, uneducated opinion. But asking
I'd agree with that.
A racing game to create 4 cars isn't like, whoa, you're asking too much there. But there's probably stuff, maybe the way that this game is built, it's all around the F1 car. It's so intrinsically woven into the rest of the fabric of the game. I don't know. I can't see it.
But it doesn't need to be perfect. Like the F2 car's there and it's great fun. The Formula Academy car would just need to be lower power. It doesn't need to be the most realistic, Formula Academy car we've ever seen. It just needs to be good enough. And the main thing is the inclusion of the actual series and the drivers,
And what would be amazing would be for female gamers, young girls who are big fans of F1 could play F1 Academy, get picked up to an F3 team, F2, and become an F1 driver in the game. Yeah. How amazing would that be?
Incredible. And they have got Callie Mayer as a woman character who could win the championship in previous Breaking Point and fighting with things. So they've got it there, but not in the other part of the game, which is very, very, there's a disconnect. And to undermine everything they might have said about, well, they haven't, but if it is really difficult, like you were saying, to develop the extra cars, well, they have done it for this year because the Apex Racing team from the F1 movie, that car, which is a quasi F2, quasi F1 car, will be in the game post-launch.
Right.
So that is another car, but they chose to do that because it's the movie over F3 and F1 Academy.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a tough decision, I guess. Well, is it? But
there might have been some marketing deal there.
Do we do a car for the? Yes. Well, maybe there was some revenue there. Do we do a car that's from the movie, or do we do F1 Academy?
You've got the movie and that.
Brad Pitt.
Oh, I was going to say, you'd go F1 Academy.
I agreed that F1 Academy, but I'm thinking as a company, you probably go, the movie's coming out and you've got to promote it.
One's going to pay you a lot more, I guess. Yeah, we're making assumptions.
We don't go Academy.
I thought, sorry, to be clear, I sounded like I disagreed there. I fully agree, and I really want the Academy in there. But I think if they're in a boardroom going, this movie's going to have Brad Pitt, it's going to be in the cinemas.
If anyone is still listeing to this,
Brad
who's
Pitt.
an F1, full stop, who's an F1 game fan, I'd love to know your opinions in the comments about should F1 Academy be part of the game or not? Because I can't see any reasons why it wouldn't, but there's a part of me that thinks that maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. We'll maybe never know. Actually, our colleague is going to the Birmingham studios in just a couple of days after this episode, and we don't know when we can talk about the what happened there, but he will be asking these questions. So follow on the Traxion website for more. Okay, final couple of comments from the community. I mean, thank you very much for the overwhelming response. I love this one from Jazzy6116. The same again? I shout as I buy the same game again.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about yearly releases. Clearly they sell well enough to justify the investment.
Do you know what that is? That is the Simcade version of, I can't believe they charge a subscription and then charge you for the car and track. He shouted as buying the next, the next car and 4 tracks he needs for season 7 of
You don't have to buy it if it's not that year, skip a year or I mean...
buy the odd games. 21, 23,
Exactly.
25.
Geo Game, well, you can't because they're all delisted.
Don't do that.
Yes.
Buy 25, 27, 29.
GeoGamer says they're glad for Breaking Point, which I think we're all agreed is a really good addition. If you're a serious person, you don't have to play that, but I think it's a really fun 15-hour experience.
No bad thing there.
Yeah. Sad for the old game engine though. Skipped last year's game. Now wait and see for this one. And this is what we're saying. Yeah. Like this is a really good mindset, I think.
Obviously, the new game engine won't come out until the new rule set comes out in 2026, right?
Well, it's a huge change for Formula One, and that'll be a good time. But we'll have to see.
That does make sense.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great though if the F1 rule set was aligned with the game engine for reasons?
It does make sense.
But then from the outside looking in, you'd be like, well, obviously, because they need to know, the physics of the car. It makes sense to build that into a new engine.
Yeah.
But then if you do that, a new engine, then basically you've got an out for any handling issues because that's just what the 2026 car's like.
Well, that's what happened in 22.
But exactly. I mean, to be fair, that wasn't an out. I literally just said don't buy that game. So
yeah. Tom says same game. Another complaint we kind of agree with. But finally, my team updates are finally current gen only. So those are two things that people have really wanted. Actually, I know. Going back, obviously Callum was upset, but I think there's also a cohort of people who really don't want the old gen consoles and they want my team updates, and that could really appease them.
Why do you only want current gen? Is it just because you want them to focus fully on that game?
And you want it to be optimized. You want to use the most that the hardware can offer in terms of graphics.
Yeah.
Although I would say F124 on a PS5 Pro can run native 8K already. And so when people say it's old game engine, it's like, well, on paper it can do some things. But there's just a general look and vibe that is very similar to what we've seen for 10 years or more now. Love this one from Dan, I'm going to say. Never interested from F1, so I no need to hear this podcast. Dan, you've missed out on our best podcast ever. And even though you weren't into the Formula 1 games...
You missed out on our Beam chat.
We talked about Beam.
And you won't hear any of this because he's not listening.
Yeah, so this whole thing doesn't work. Final point is from Sky Mayonnaise. 80 euros for nearly the same game as last year is outrageous. If it was nearly the same game, it is outrageous. But it does seem like there are some improvements there.
I'm definitely not saying that's not outrageous because game prices are generally outrageous.
Yeah. Oh, true. Plus the Iconic Edition probably is up to 80 euros.
If not more.
The only thing I would say, and we come back to this whole subscription thing, the cost of sim racing. Think about all the DLC that's released each year. Think about, a subscription to iRacing or even LMU in its current early access state. The cost of that per year. And you think, okay, well, that's reasonable. LMU sounds a bit reasonable compared to iRacing. But $80 a year if it was a subscription service and it was a continually updated game.
Yeah, atomize that cost down per month.
Yeah. I would literally start doing that in my head. I was like, what's that?
But I'm just saying, it's probably something in the region.
It's very expensive. But I'm guessing people that think this is expensive or outrageous are also going to think that iRacing is outrageous.
The thing as well is, that's a really good point. I think actually 80 euros a year, or less if it's in a sale or something, is a lot of money, but it is cheaper than iRacing or Le Mans Ultimate when you add up all the content and stuff. But then there's the whole, you can buy a Assetto Corsa for €5 sometimes on a sale and then get all this illegal, unlicensed content. And that kind of undermines the whole market and makes it look a bit... but that's a rant for another time because it's also fantastic. And I'm not denigrating
it. It is mad, isn't it? 80 nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
What used to be, I remember as a kid, like, that's
40?
a top A game, a AAA game. It's like $39.99.
Yeah,
and now we're looking at 85, 100 for the edition that gets you the game the day before everyone else.
Freddo's are nearly £1.
Unbelievable.
Outrageous.
This coffee table was £70,000. That's incredible stuff.
And on that note, we will end the podcast. But again, let us know in the comments on YouTube for your thoughts of this ramshackle episode, but also Formula 1 25. We'll be back in maybe a month. We'll definitely be back. A month-ish with another roundup. So again, any questions, podcast@traxion.gg is the email, or again, just find us on social media or the comment section. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.